Okay, I have my audio now. Yeah, I decided to. I can't hear you from my side. No.
Oh, I'm muted.
There we go.
So it might be that everything that I said in the beginning, you didn't hear. So let me start again. So
Okay.
welcome to Refresh Coffee Time, our Saturday call. I want to welcome Kim that is here and Gary, my partner. Refresh Coffee Time is brought to you by Refresh Organizers and Designers. And today we're going to talk about color. And as I just mentioned, but I was muted, I just mentioned how thrilling it was as a child to choose colors. And fast forward nowadays, how many people are really overwhelmed by the amount of choices we have, especially if you think in terms of your walls, how to combine colors and how to think about colors in your interior. So today we are going to address that. We're going to wait 5 minutes or so until a little more people arrive, and then I'll start my talk. And Kim, since you are joining us today, do you have any special questions or challenges with color, or do you love it and you go out there and you are ready to select all your colors? Tell us a little bit what your relationship is with colors.
Well, it really, sometimes it depends on the season, actually. So for example, like with my clothing, I tend to wear much more color in the spring and summer. I like the pastels, I like the bright colors, but then fall comes and I wear gray most of the time. I'm a big fan of gray, like charcoal gray. And then I feel like it's kind of hard to wear color in the fall and winter season. And I'm not sure why that is. I mean, I know there's darker colors, but I gravitate. I can't tell you how many gray sweaters I have.
Oh wow, that is really, I like that you say that it is a matter of seasons. So, you know, depending on the season, you will gravitate towards a different color palette. That's really nice. um, I can totally imagine that. I usually do a walk here in our area before we start the call, and it's really amazing to see the bounty of nature right now. All the colors, all the flowers, the leaves, everything is so beautiful. So just walking outside today, I was totally inspired by the different colors around me.
Yeah, I love how nature can inspire us. I
Yes.
too am so inspired by the color of the flowers and even the different kinds of greens that you see on the plants that don't have flowers. I think, you know, connecting with nature is a great way to choose color also. And sometimes I have a hard time narrowing it down to just one color. For example, when I used to have a apartment in San Francisco, I wasn't able to change the color of the walls. It was just everything was white. And so when I bought my condo way back in 2001, which I don't have anymore, but I didn't want anything to be white. So every single room had a different color palette. And the downside of that is that it breaks up the space more. I think it makes it seem like the rooms are a little bit more smaller. That's what I've learned, you know, over time from doing that. So now I'm kind of like back to the idea that one color palette is good, you know, when you have a big open space and you can look into different rooms. But like using different color for like a small bathroom. You know, I feel like that's a fun place to play with color.
Yeah. Yeah, I also like accent walls. I'm going to show a couple of
Mm-hmm.
examples of how color works in space. That's one of the aspects that I'm going to be talking about. But it's certainly true if your home is not really larger, the space is not really large, the more colors you use next to each other, the more you divide the surfaces in compartments. So that means that it will look smaller. And sometimes it's really welcome, you know, if you have like a space that you want to have more intimate and you want to kind of create a smaller environment in a larger environment, using certain colors will help you achieve that. So it's not always said that you should go with the whole house with one color. It is very practical because then you can work with color in what I call layers. You have your first layers are more neutral in color. And then you have accents, of course, doors and, you know, all the detailing in your house, as I'm seeing here. You have like lighter doors. And then from there, you can start building your environment with added color that you can change also seasonally if you wish. Accessories, art, even furniture pieces, upholstery. If it's not a large piece, you're not going to change all the time, but you can combine it in different ways. So that's a way of introducing color in different layers so that you can have a little more flexibility if you don't want to be painting all the time, right? It's not a big
Yeah, I don't
expense.
do the painting myself, so you know, getting someone to change the paint color is maybe I just need to learn how to paint myself.
Yeah, well, I did a lot of painting when I lived in the Netherlands. It's a Dutch tradition. Maybe you remember that. If you move into a home, the first thing you do, you white all the walls. It's almost like a cleansing ritual. And I did a
Uh-huh.
lot of those. And then after that, you can decide for color. But in the Netherlands, people really like pastels and you know lighter colors. So they'll keep pretty much to white walls or more neutral colors.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite white? Because
I
there's so
have
many
a,
different versions of white.
yes, I have different versions for different uses. There are a couple of whites that are more commonly used in the, let's say, the industry. Um, and then you might have heard of Swiss coffee. That is one of the most
Hmm.
no neutral colors, I think, forever.
Yeah.
Um, I I look at the space itself and the totality of everything that is in it, and then I decide for which kind of white or
Hmm.
what kind of combination in whites. We had one client where she had like floors, wooden floors, but she wanted all the walls in white. So I did a combination of different whites so that it wouldn't be totally abstract and no detailing whatsoever. So I had a color for the ceiling and a color for the walls and also all the trims so that, you know, you had a little bit of contrast going there. Not really contrast, but a difference that you could feel the difference in whites. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember in the house I grew up as a child, my mom chose a color called Navajo white for the
Yes.
walls. And
Yeah.
I still remember that color because I think it was just, you know, had a little bit of warmth to it. And I still just can visualize that wall like in our dining rooms, you know. And but there's a new color that I saw not too long ago. It might have been when we were on one of our calls, we were talking about color, and I think it was from the Pantone website, and the
Mm.
color was called coconut milk. And
Oh,
I thought it actually looked like a nice, you know, kind of white as well. So
yeah, it
yeah,
probably
it's
is
kind of
more creamy. Um,
um, yeah, it wasn't it like it didn't have too much yellow.
yeah,
Um, but it was just yeah, it was just a nice version of a white. You know, when you go to the paint store and you look at all the different whites and you're
yeah,
actually trying to like having to narrow it down, it can be a little overwhelming.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It really is. Hi, Andrea, welcome. You're just at the wonderful moment because I was about to start with the presentation, so that's great. There'll be probably a couple
Hi,
of other
Andrea.
people walking in, but I'm slowly gonna, we were just having a conversation with Kim about colors and how to look at colors. So is there anything that you hear more often than not from your clients when it concerning color? Andrea Sessa has a very good running architecture and landscape architecture office here in the Bay Area. And I bet that color is something that you always discuss with your clients.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to hear what you have to share because there's always more. I mean, color is so much more varied and complicated, and there's so much to it that even, you know, what I know about it is I feel limited, even though I probably have more experience with color than, you know, someone who's not a designer, but there's just so much to it. And what we find, interior and exterior, it's just interesting where people are drawn to. You know, and in our initial landscape questionnaire, we ask about color preferences pretty early on. Every once in a while, someone says, I like them all. You know, yellow, pink, red, purple, you know, which is like a circus of a garden. It would just look pretty awful, like just way too much, you know. And so, but other people, I have people who want just greens.
Yeah.
Greens, shades of green, chartreuse green, sage green, maybe a little bit of white. And that calmness is what they want.
Reflected in the,
because people bring color and food brings color to spaces. So and in kitchens too, some people feel like they want a very simple palette because a kitchen is a place where a lot of color comes naturally. And other people are like, that would be depressing. You know, if I had pale grays and whites, that seems like a hospital to me, people have said.
Yeah, it's that's very good. That ties into where I want to go in this talk, because I'm gonna pull my presentation here and give it a start. Oh, I didn't open it. Just let me just first.
And while you do that, I'll just add that I usually run with what people have. I mean, I give them the pros and cons of some color or a simple palette, but I really respect what they're coming with. But that doesn't mean, I would never push someone into something they're uncomfortable with, but I'm wondering if there's room for a conversation about something they haven't thought of that might make them happy.
Yeah, exactly. And that is one of the aspects I'm going to touch today, because the change tolerance of people is a very important factor to take into consideration. Not everyone is, I mean, sometimes there is the desire to change. That is something that we see. There is the desire to change, but there is the tolerance to change is a little less, you know? So you have to respect that from yourself too. So I tried, as you say, color is a very complex thing, because it is not only we talk about color, but it's not really only the color. First of all, color is light. So, and that is actually how color started. So for the benefit of the people that will watch this later, you guys know me, just so that people know where I'm coming from when I'm talking about color. So I'm the founder and principal of Refresh Organizers and Designers. I co-founded it with Gary Chatan, that is also on our call today and every call we have. We do interior design and home and office organization. Our focus is really to create places that restore energy and balance for our client. And we do that by aligning what the client needs with their space. Imagine space after your skin and your clothes. is really the next skin, right? Is what involves you, what is around you, and what really influences you. And some people don't really realize that, but if the space around you is not working for you, it will be working against you because you have to deal with it every day. I've had an international career of 25 years plus. Women never like to go into how old are you, so let's say that I'm vintage on the planet by now, but I'm blessed with having been able to live in so many different countries and exposed to different palettes, sensitivities in terms of color and culture. And I'm an artist and educator. I just love helping people do their thing. So 5 things you should know about choosing colors. If we pass the stage of it's complex, we can also go back to the feeling of how wonderful it was as a child, you know, to be able to choose colors and make drawings. I mean, it's really wonderful that we still have that memory. Maybe we don't access it always, but it's certainly present with us, because color is what gives us the salt and pepper around us, right? So today I'm gonna try to talk about 5 aspects as I see how to go about choosing colors. So just do a recap of what a color wheel is and how we talk about color. Also, I would like to address the issue of the different moods that color can evoke. That's a very strong thing. Even if you are not conscious of it, different colors will evoke different moods. Of course, you have cultural aspects in that, but in general, there are certain things that hold true for most cultures. What color can do in a space, and then we get into what your color comfort zone is. So that is something that is very important to understand and also take into account when you're choosing colors. And then a little bit about combining colors and how you can ask questions to yourself to guide that process. So, okay, color wheel. Most of you might have heard of Newton. That is that gentleman that also sat under a tree and started observing gravity. Well, he also observed light, and in light, he discovered color. So he developed a wheel with 12 colors that you're seeing right in the center of the image. And from there, we started studying color more intensely from one century to the other up to the present day. Color has been perceived in different centuries in very different ways. When we talk about red today, it's not necessarily what people perceived as red, let's say, in the Middle Ages. But basically, you can say that you can divide it in primary colors that everybody still knows from, you know, doing their drawings at school, red, yellow, and blue. And then you can subdivide that again in secondary colors and tertiary colors. I'm not going to go into the whole technique and the technical part of it, but so you know that that is how we mostly talk about color. So that is also true when you go into a shop and you try to find colors for your wall. What is an element that is added to this discussion if you're dealing with primary colors or you go into other gradations of colors that you have? First of all, the color that we can also call a hue. We have a tint of the color when you add whites. So for all those folks that love the more pastels and the more subdued spaces, that is an area of color that you'll be looking without really realizing you're doing that, maybe, or maybe you do, good for you. And then you can go into shades, which are the colors plus black. So you'll see that on the outskirts of any, you know, color presentation. And so whites being one part of the spectrum and black to the other opposite one in any way they present it. And then a tone is usually the color and gray. also something that people really enjoy. So if you know that, that's why when we talk about color, we all sometimes say, oh, it has gray in it, or it has white, or it's more of a darker to the black side of the spectrum. It's because that is how the color has been made. The mixtures are all standard, of course. The standards is a beautiful story how they produce that. The painting companies that sell paint, every country has a palette. And I had a friend that developed this kind of colors for the Netherlands, which is really cool to know that. And it's very different for different countries. So the other thing that I was talking about is something that is very important to understand is moods. There is tons of information about mood, color, and moods on the internet. I don't know, everyone has their own list. There are some things that come, more often than no. But most of the times we can talk about the yellow being something that is more excitable, red being warm, brown giving more of a base feeling, more earthy, more, green and blue are the colors that you, as Andrea was mentioning, that you want to have if you want to have some more calm into your space. So there are some things that are accepted generally, but what I would like you to do is to understand what color does for your mood. Because ultimately it's about your space and about how you feel related to color, right? I can tell you, oh, this will look wonderful. You're gonna use a wonderful hue of yellow. It will look exciting. And you go, oh my God, I don't want that. I don't want any excitement actually. So you really have to understand that of yourself. It might look like a great idea, but maybe it's not that great for you. It might look nice in the magazine. So just very briefly, you can say you can use schemes. If you like something that is calmer, you'll probably like more of an analogous color scheme. So that means that you're working in a same sequence of colors, so not so much contrasting each other. If you like things to have a little more of a temperament, you'll probably go and look for a complementary scheme. So a famous one is blue and orange, for instance, so the opposite, if you look at the ring, you see the red, opposite the red is the green. So these are called complementary. And then if you really want to make it super dynamic, you'll go to more complex schemes and use more colors in different layers in your space, not necessarily all on the wall. I wouldn't advise that. It's always a combination of what you choose for your walls and what you do in your interior. And if you know how to play with that, it becomes fun, So here I put together a board with only the primary color. So you see here, blue, red, and yellow. And what it does for space, if you really use it as a hue, just pull out the color really strong. If you use it in a complementary mode, so that you are contrasting, have contrasting elements in your space, or if you try to use it more calmly, so in the case of the yellow, you can see it's not the yellow as the top of the mood board, but it already has much more white in it. It's much calmer. And if you use furniture pieces that are also more serene, you get some of that quality of yellow, but it doesn't overwhelm you. So in other words, there are very different ways of using colors. Some people will say, yes, I love contrasts. I really love that. I love to have strong contrast. For that room that I think, my living room where I receive people, for instance, it's nice to have something that is more exciting. And maybe in my bedroom, I would like to have something that is more calming. So, which brings me also to functionality. So the mood is also associated to the type of activities you have. Your living room might be the place that is your showcase that you invite people to and that you want to have a little more happening. And your kitchen, for instance, as Andrea was mentioning, you might not want to have an egg yellow kitchen because it's too much. But then again, if you have it all in white, you might feel bored. So, you know, so then you're gonna negotiate with yourself what is your tolerance for color and how you can combine things. You can also combine materials. That's another talk, but you know, materials also have color. If you think in terms of wood or in terms of stone or in terms of other things that you add to a space, you're also adding color, you know. So this is the other kind of atmosphere I was talking about. So here you see an image on the left with more of the neutrals towards gray and more of a beige. I always say beige in English, but it's beige. A beige tone, and on the other side, more of a white. But also here you see that it's very subtle. It's combined with other materials, so it gives a little more to that white. So that's also something to take into consideration when you think in terms of color. It's never only the color. It is the totality of your interior. It's the light coming in or not coming in. It's what kind of artificial light you have added. It is a whole combination of factors that will make your interior. And color is certainly one of the most important, but you can have it in different layers. So light is really something that can change color dramatically. In this picture, you see the wall on the back. It's the exact same color, but having direct sunlight on it does one thing with that color, and not having light gives you a totally different information about that same color. So that's also something you have to take into consideration when you think in terms of color. What kind of space is it? How much light am I going to see coming into that room naturally? And how much light do I want to add? Adding light is amazing in combination with color, because light also has color. So you see that you can play with these things, and then it starts becoming fun to imagine what kind of interior you want to do, right? So colors in space, as I was talking earlier, you can have very different ambiances that you are creating and looking for. You can notice that all three images here have a very light background, but they have different elements in it. And it gives a totally different space. I couldn't find the exact same space with different furniture pieces, so this was the best I could assemble. But you get the idea. I mean, you can have one room that you use with a very nice light paint, white and white trims and everything nice and crisp. And you want to have a more modern and clean environment. You introduce in a second and third layers, you introduce colors that will complement that white wall and will give you that impression of clean. And of course, when we live in a place like that, you'll have a little more going on, but for the photo, just bear with me. The idea here is soft, clean, and calming environment. And then in the middle, you have more what you would call a boho, where you have much more textures, much more things happening. Some people really need more visual cues and more visual information. I have one client once that told me, I really need to have all these things out there on the walls, and I want this case full of my things because I need to have that visual information. So that's also important to know about yourself. What kind of visual information and what kind of things do you want to have around you? For some people, the image in the middle is like, yes, that's exactly, it's homey, it's, you know, it's warm, it gives me the idea that I can live in there, you know, with all the little things that I've collected and the beautiful elements and the vases and the colors. That's my interior. And other people will say, no, not at all. I want to have a sophisticated, somewhat more detached with one eye-catching element. I can have my white walls and I put some art up that is contemporary and I want to transmit a contemporary, more sophisticated look. So that's the one on the bottom. So it's about you expressing your personality. What do you want to see around you? You know, and you have to be very honest about that, because sometimes we have the impression, oh yes, for instance, I love red, but I am not, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't have had one home where I had one single red wall, because for me, red has a different value in how I want to see my environment. It can be art, it can be accessories, but not on the wall. So that's another thing that you have to figure out for yourself. So that's the comfort zone. Here we see different elements with different colors connected to each other, and it gives you an idea of different temperatures that you can choose to have around you, you know, the walls and other things around you. Some people are naturally drawn to certain combinations. And you have to ask yourself, okay, I've been choosing this for all my life. Sometimes I have that with clothes. It's like, you know, okay, I've been using all these colors for so long. Now I want to change. So how comfortable am I with changing to something else, you know? So that is a conversation that is very important to have, because sometimes we have the ambition to go drastic, take my red walls, and sometimes it's not going to happen. You know, it's not going to happen because you're not prepared to take that step. I know in my case, I'm not going to do that red wall, not now. Maybe in another in another space, another moment. So what you can ask yourself to help yourself is, are you happy with the colors around you? That is, of course, the very first question. So if you are not happy, so how comfortable are you with change, what we have just discussed? So do you want for a small transformation, mid-size, or are we going drastic, really reviewing all the walls, doing accent walls, really introducing color? Or, you know, another question that you can ask yourself, which is a very good question, is what's keeping me from changing? You know, because sometimes we are hesitant because we don't trust what we feel. Trust what you feel. If you feel strongly about certain things, or if you allow yourself to really feel what you want, you will come up with a feeling about, even if you ask someone like myself or Andrea to help you with the colors, you need to know for yourself what your change tolerance is, if you will. So that guides us, that helps us to make it even more the way you want it. So colors, combining colors, fun, fun, fun. Just understand what the basic principles are and how you can combine colors successfully with each other. And it becomes fun again, like when you were a child. So the questions that I want to give to you to consider is, what kind of environment really aligns with you? Do you want something that is calming? Or do you want something that will restore your energy? And you need to have certain colors around you to make that happen. You know, not every color will energize you. Not every color will relax you. So going back to the moods, that is really important to understand what kind of environment really complements you and really aligns with what you need to have around you. Then, as we talked a little bit before, what kind of activity do you have in the space that you are looking to add some color? Because depending on the function of the space, certain colors will work better than others. You know, if you think in terms of bathrooms, for instance, that is what I think Kim mentioned that in the beginning. That is a space where a lot of people really go for a little more color, a little more blue. Sometimes you see violets or purples, or, you know, yellows. People really go for some more color in the bathroom, but maybe less in the living room. So, you know, it depends on the activity. If it's a workplace or a workout place, you can have a little more color that stimulates you to do activities like yellows and oranges. You know, it doesn't have to be all over, but you can introduce color to also stimulate you in the different activities or relax you, right? So, and last but not least, what is your change tolerance? That's a biggie one. And after asking yourself this kind of questions, you know, it becomes fun. It's really fun. Color is amazing. It's really the salt and pepper of life. It is the seasoning that you can do, not do without. It's really super fun. So there you have it. Today we talked about a little bit about the technique, the color wheel, the different moods, what it does in your space or can do color, your comfort zone, and combining colors, and the fact that it can be super fun. Never forget that. Don't get overwhelmed. So this is us, Gary and I. We're every Saturday here with Refresh Coffee Time by Refresh organizers and designers. So I'm going to open for questions. If somebody has questions, I'm going to stop to share here so that I can see you guys. Okay. Well, any comments?
Well, you know, the one thing I was thinking about is people are terrified of color. People are afraid of making a decision, and that's why they need a colorist or somebody to help them take the step. And from what I've seen out there, is that is pretty much the biggest thing holding people back from going outside of their so-called beige, you know, comfort zone. Some people are saying that gray is the new beige, right? But from the pictures that you presented earlier, I think there is room for actually kind of a palette of all of those if they're used with the right combination of accents. I mean, you also have a wall color, you have the trim color. What do I do with the ceiling?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants, you know, there is a ceiling white that, you know, paint companies sell. And then do you accent the trim? And yeah, I mean, certain rooms also kind of elicit different color palettes. And some people, you know, as you said, the bathrooms, you could be a little more experimental or a little more fun. Your office certainly needs to be calm. Sometimes a living room, people are using very dark colors now as a whole room, as you illustrated in your presentation, or they are doing a so-called accent wall. And accent walls are an easy way to change a room if you don't want to go through the cost of changing everything else out. The one thing about painting is that, you know, once you start, let's say you say, oh, yeah, I'm just going to paint the walls and I'm going to leave the trim because it's too much work, or I'm going to leave the ceiling, or vice versa. What happens is you paint something nice and it's beautiful and clean and sharp. The other things are going to accentuate, and that includes furniture too. You know, it's like when people move into a new house, they move into a beautiful, you know, it's got a great paint job, everything is gorgeous, and then they look at their furniture that the cats had gotten a hold of, or, you know, that faded because it was next to an exposed window. So those are times when you can start, I think, bringing in color and talking to somebody who can give you some consultation on the possibilities. If you create the possibilities, then good things can happen.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, and once again, it's very, when I showed those different, the primary color mood board, uh, it depends, because sometimes in the very beginning, Kim and I were talking about that, red, getting to the red or the blue, or even the yellow, it might look very intense, but sometimes that's exactly what you want. You know, sometimes you want a very small or intimate space. So then,
Right.
for instance, doing a red room, I'm not saying that everyone has to go out there and do that, but depending on how you do that, it's perfect, because that's how it was used also in different historic periods. We didn't even go into that. Is exactly because they wanted to have a parlor, you know. So you'll
Yeah.
see that in certain periods where, you know, the room has very bright colors, but it's also, the idea is to have a, you know, a small, or not small, but an intimate atmosphere, you know. And the same you can do with your ceilings. We always tend to use the same kind of color for the ceilings, but depending on how you treat your ceilings, you're also making more open space or more intimate space. It all depends on, once again, what you want to create. That it starts there.
Yeah. Well, you know, also
But
the floor.
maybe Kim or Andrea have an observation or a question that they want to ask.
Go ahead, Kim.
Well, I love the reminder of thinking about mood and how the mood can really be impacted by color. And seeing that color chart was really fun. So thank you for sharing that. And I painted my dining room in 2018, and before it was painted, I actually had an accent wall that was red, because I thought, okay, this is going to be a place for entertaining. It's going to be fun. So it was kind of like a chili pepper red, not super bright, but or like a paprika color, but not quite as dark as paprika. And I really liked it for a long time. But then when the room needed to be repainted, I thought, no, it's a bit much now. So instead of painting the wall, I painted the built-in cabinets instead, and now they're kind of like a sky blue, which is completely different, but the whole feeling of the room has also changed with some different furniture, and so it's fun to change accent walls, and it's also you know, it's a good way to like, you know, like the name of your business, to refresh a room. And if you don't like it, you know, you just can change it again. So
Yes.
it's not a huge investment, I think. Although I will say painting a built-in cabinet is probably more expensive than painting a wall, just because of the amount of detail work that's involved. So that one is not something that I'll probably change too soon, but it is fun to use accent walls. And one color that I saw recently in the background of a Zoom call that I was on earlier this year was kind of like a chalkboard gray on a bedroom wall. And the bed was covered in white, and it had like a shearling throw on it, and just the contrast of the white bed and then this chalkboard color wall. And I don't know if the whole room was chalkboard, it might have just been an accent wall, but it was really cool.
Yeah, it looks really cool. Yeah, but once again, it depends on the person, you know. Bedrooms are a place of a lot of discussions, because for one person it couldn't be light enough, and for the next person they really like, you know, the aubergines and the darker charcoals, and to even black. It really depends on also you know, the phase of someone. What, you know, I once we did a job, and this was a teenage boy, and he wanted to be cool, so he had like black. He really liked black things and grays and things like that. So it also depends on the phase, you know, what kind of phase you are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have a personal trainer friend, and she converted her garage into a workout space, and she's got yellow on the walls. And
There you
then
go.
the floor has this gray, you know, kind of rubberized matting on it, and the
Uh-huh.
gray and the yellow together is great. And I love that idea, because a workout place, you know, you want to have energy. So
Yes,
it's really
exactly.
fun.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. So that's the place where you want to have, you know, imagine having a place that these places exist, but like all dark and, you know, you want to have energy in the room. So you feel, yes, I can do this, you know, and yes, let's do an extra blah, blah, or whatever, you know, some push-ups or, yeah,
Well,
that's good.
talk about rooms. We did a room for a family where the husband was a collector of Star Trek memorabilia, and he had hundreds of these little starships that we designed a wall full of shelving, acrylic shelving. But then on the back wall, we picked out a whole space scene. So there's incredible wallpapers out there, and they're made of like a vinyl. They're like a pressure sensitive vinyl that can actually be removed at some point. And we did a whole mural of you're out in outer space, and he had his, you know, on the floor in front of that, he had all his gaming. And this guy is, you know, he's you
Father
know,
of a small child.
he's 35 maybe years old, and this was his man's cave, but it was huge.
Yeah.
And it was very cool. It was fun.
Yeah, so we never talked about wallpaper today, but that's really the
That'll be
wallpapers
another
that we
one.
have nowadays are really open so much possibility. But then, you know, that would be another talk, because that's color
Yeah,
and that's texture, you
yeah.
know. So yeah. Did
So
you
are
want to
those
say?
like wall decals when you're talking about that wallpaper that's removable?
Yes,
No,
Are
you
they
have
also called
decals.
decals?
You have
yes.
decals, and you have the whole wallpaper, just, you know, rolls of wallpaper.
I mean, yeah, they could take a photograph of yours and blow it up to wall size, and you could show your whole family on a vacation or something out there or whatever. But yeah, and they have nature scenes, like you're in gorgeous redwood forest, or out there out in the Southwest with cactus. But it's some of it is very, very nice.
Yeah,
Some of
that
it,
might be an
yeah,
idea for a next talk. But did you want
yeah,
to
that
say
would be
something,
fun to do a
Andrea?
talk on that.
Andrea wanted to comment on
Yeah,
something.
Oh yeah. I feel like it's so unfortunate there aren't 20, 30 people here today. And
yeah.
with you recording it and maybe giving this again now that you gave it, I definitely think more people should see it. And just, you know, more on a colleague to colleague, Kim, like me figuring out how to work with Juliet and Gary. I mean, I feel like I could think of 3 clients, one in particular, it's all interior, some exterior, and the other 2 are gardens, that, you know, we could figure out how much does it cost to hear this presentation, and we set up a Zoom with them. Because just for you to go through this with the clients allows them to think about color. I know most of it's a big house in Alamo, and most of it's pretty beige. And
Oh
I
yeah.
thought, we're doing a huge outdoor remodel and some interior. But then, you know, it's been months I've been working with her. We're figuring out the cost and everything. But she said, if we're getting all new windows and doors, you know, and we do repaint, you know, she said this beige was selected because, you know, I did think we were going to sell a long time ago, but it doesn't necessarily reflect like and I was assuming they were very conservative with their color, because the whole house is beige and white, and you know, they're conservative people in general, so it wasn't
That's
totally
probably
off.
the color when they bought it. That was probably the original color from the builders.
Well, no, I mean it's gone through a couple hands, and
Uh-huh.
they picked these colors because I think they thought they were going to sell within 5 years, and it would
Yeah.
be, you
It's
know,
incredibly
approachable,
safe. It's such a safe decision.
safe decision. And so I think she and I should go on with you and listen to this and have her think about what you presented.
That's
And
wonderful.
it'll be a springboard for her to think about the rooms, because with an entire house, it was a little intimidating for me. It's a
Uh-huh.
big house to think about the palettes room by room and for the
Yeah.
whole house when we have all this other work to be doing. So I'm just throwing that out there. And then I was thinking for the other two clients, you know, it can the presentation, if we work together with this together, because, you know, well, like with Kim, you understand like the mood and the effect on and the energy in people is their garden too. And sometimes the investment in the plants is a lot more than paint on the wall.
Uh-huh.
You know, so it's a pretty big investment to have a palette. And I know people like the colors because we've shown them lots of pictures of the flowers and everything, but
Uh-huh.
have they gone through a process of thinking, like Kim did with her dining room, is it a time for me to change?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've always liked purples in the gardens. Well, you know, is it a time for change? Is there an exploration of what else could be? So I think there's so much potential I mean, it's a short presentation that allows people to place themselves in color,
Uh-huh.
which is one aspect of design and one aspect of our overall, you know, health and space and energy. So thank you so much. I think it's great. I think we should figure out how to
Yeah. Well,
use it
Yeah,
more and help
I
people.
think it'd be
Yeah.
a great way for you two to partner up and work together with more clients.
yes,
I think it was
absolutely.
fabulous,
Yeah.
really excellent.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I just love color. I mean, I love creating spaces for people that really make sense. I mean,
Yeah.
of course, Andrea and I share, you know, a language, and that is architecture.
Mm-hmm.
So, and in architecture, you have certain rules and techniques and skills and things like that. But besides that enthusiasm of really making an interior for someone that makes sense in terms of functionality, and you know that everything is in its place and that the technique is taken care of, etc., is the pleasure of really aligning a space to the person that is living in there. And most people are not aware of that. That's something that I've been developing here in California. That's the gift of California to me, is past the knowledge I already came with. I started realizing how important it is through the work that we do to really listen carefully to the person that I'm working with and their space, because both have a story,
Yeah.
and how to get these stories, you know, on the same page, because it makes such a difference. Imagine every day being irritated because the color doesn't match you, or the furniture doesn't work for you, or you cannot walk really decently in your space because you have too much. And you know, and color is something that has energy, so you're
Yeah.
receiving that every day. So it's the energy of everything that is materialized around you, but it's also the energy of the color you're receiving. So it is so important to realize that that is essential. Actually, I don't know how people are not educated in an early age to understand that, you know, as the care they take to choose that blue blouse or whatever,
Yeah.
it's your environment, it's where you want to be and your optimum, you know. So yeah, I love this kind of thing. I love teaching people to become aware of what they can do for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Can
really
I ask a question?
sure.
So with wood floors, I think that sometimes, you know, the color of wood floors can reflect onto light. And if you're doing a little test patch of paint on the wall, I'm not sure that you necessarily get the reflection of the wood floor at the same time. And I think I made a mistake one time picking a color And I don't love it, you know. And I think that the floor is what kind of made the color a little different. And how can you prevent that?
Well, when I look, once again, you look at the totality, but in relationship to materials that have their own color and use, and you can see, especially in engineered wood, you have a more pronounced even kind of color happening, you know, that comes through. And the finish usually goes either towards red, or it goes towards yellow, or if they want to subdue it, they'll do like a gray wash or a white wash. So you have to know that when you look at the wood, to see how you can combine that with the color on your wall. Because you can do basically, I had a teacher that did big theater productions at the architectural school. And he would always talk about colors, and I never forgot it, in terms of families. So you can mix any color with any color as long as they are related, they're family. And what he meant was that it has approximately the same composition in terms of whites or blacks or grays in it, or where it goes towards. If you decipher that equation, you know that, okay, you can even work contrasting. You can have a color that has a hue or a tone or whatever that is contrasting to your floor, as long as you know that you're talking that language, that they're, you know, related somehow. So in that sense, color is fun because there's a lot you can do. There's almost no limits, you know. Each individual is a different story with color, as long as you understand some basic principles to how to look at color, how to select it, and how to see it in your space. Once again, light also is very important. You know, do you have natural light coming in? Do you have artificial light on the wall, or, you know, whatever? You know, so you'll perceive your space differently, you know.
And do you have a good referral for an indoor or exterior painter that won't break the bank?
Well, we have a friend that is a painter. He has a painting company, so I can connect you with him.
Is he licensed?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he's licensed and
Yes.
bonded. He does a lot of commercial work and houses and
Great.
Yeah, and I remember, Andrea, we went to that. What is the name of that organization for contractors that we visited? The oh God. Well, anyway, we visited one of their events last year, and I ended up talking to someone that was a paint company person. So he can also advise. He works with painters. So there are multiple options. And within BNI, if we talk to, unfortunately, Alan is not here today, but Alan and Frank, they know a lot of painters too. So painters is, we know a lot of those
there's
out
actually
there.
a painter in my chapter, but he's not licensed, and I prefer to work with a licensed contractor.
Oh, yeah.
So
he's not licensed. He doesn't have insurance or anything. Is that what you mean by licensed?
No, not necessarily. I mean, I don't know for sure about insurance, but he's changed his role now in the chapter from painter to handyman, because the license issue kind of became a topic of discussion before the renewal time. But I have had him do like a small job, and he did a good job. I just think for a larger project, or for certainly exterior painting, when somebody has to get up on a ladder, that kind of thing, you know, I'm more comfortable working with
They need to be licensed and bonded.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
You have to have liability insurance. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I worked in the insurance industry for over 15 years, so I
Oh.
totally know the importance of that. And if
Yeah.
anyone ever has questions on their own insurance and you want help or have a question, feel free to
Oh.
reach out to me. Like, I'm happy to look at a quote if you get a quote or that
All
kind of thing.
right.
I let my license lapse at the beginning of this year because I just said I really don't ever want to go back to the industry. So
Oh,
I
okay.
decided not to renew it. So that was kind of an interesting side note there. But anyway, I like the color of the paint on your office, Andrea. It's very, very pretty.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I wish it's light gray, and then it's kind of hard to see the wainscoting is dark gray, but yeah, about the yellow and gray. So my dining room was all white, and it had these cool black leather chairs, and it was, you know, more wood, black, white, and there's also like time that you spend in a space. So I was married and divorced in this house.
Yeah.
So there were certain spaces where I was like, this, either I picked these things out and they do reflect me and I love them and I'll keep them, but there were other spaces where I was like, this is just gloomy now. And I just, I don't, and my dining room is now light gray, a pop of yellow. It's got artwork that has more color, and it makes me so happy.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Pretty.
Yeah.
That's very good.
The office has some pops of yellow. You just can't see it, but yeah, there's so much about it.
Sunshine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's an important part of the, painting or picking colors or changing transforming from one life to another and feeling like you want to be a new person,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah,
I
and
just
it
ordered a yellow chair for my backyard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
put a yellow chair in my house, but in the backyard, it's going to be at the back of the yard that is kind of neglected a little bit. So I'm trying to make it more inviting. And
Yeah.
I think a yellow chair is going to be really fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it also depends on yellow and yellow, right? There are so many different types of colors also out there. So
Seems like lime green is becoming a popular color for front doors.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just as our
yeah.
little walk today, I saw some of that. Well, combined with, a gray or a dark gray, it can look pretty, I like it.
Mhm.
My chair
Yeah.
there is kind of a,
Yeah. Your chair is a cool
Yeah.
yellow. Yeah, and the lime green, I think some people, they're actually going for more of a chartreuse or a true lime, and they end up with like highlighter green.
Yeah.
oh,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like I've
Yeah.
seen some where you're like, I'm not sure that's what they were actually going for. It's like a little too intense, and that's
Yeah, we did a project where I did a whole study of so it's new build, but they wanted a Victorian atmosphere. So we advised a couple of details in the house just to elevate it more from a box to something that has a little more depth. And I thought a long time about the doors because I thought, if you're talking Victorian, one thing that really pops out is the door. The front door in Victorian architecture is really fun. So I looked around for all sorts of schemes and ended up with a really calm facade with a cherry red front door.
Fun. Did they love it?
Yes, they did. That was really fun, to do. But the whole study, Gary and I looking at all the Victorian schemes and how to combine all the different trims and things. And so, it's really a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Well, guys, this was a great pleasure. I hope to do this presentation many more times for people that are served by it. So, Andrea, let's look around and put it out there. My pleasure to do it.
Yep.
And Kim, I hope that you had some of your questions answered today. If not, we'll hear from you.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I'm going to put this in the group, so if people want to watch it again, they'll be able to do it. And next week, we are going to talk about what, Gary? Suggest something for next week. Do you guys
I
have
don't know. You know,
suggestions?
we haven't talked about staging at all.
Mm-hmm.
We may want to talk a little bit about staging, if not next week, the week
Oh yeah, that
after or
might be
after
fun,
that.
because then we go from color, how we use color, into our staging projects. Yeah, that might
And
be nice.
Julia, you had asked me if I wanted to do another talk, and I realized that the talk on accessory dwelling units I gave that at BNI, not on Refresh.
Okay.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yes.
So and so it would just be that 10-minute that, you know, BNI is so short. I would just be adding a little bit more to the beginning and end. I had to talk really fast during BNI, but that could easily become, you know, 20, 25 minutes if you think there's an interest here.
Yeah,
I
sure.
think if that would be good, we could reach out to more realtors, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and get them interested.
Yeah.
We have a whole list of BNI realtors that we could introduce. And I mean, all of you guys are in BNI, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you guys know Declan? Declan Spring?
Yeah.
He's a fantastic top producer with Red Oak Realty, and he would be a great one to invite. I mean, he's very, very good, very professional, super awesome guy, and his